Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Victini. We've done it, guys. We have completed the 4th generation, and now it's on to the 5th generation for Pokemon movesets. Interestingly enough, it starts off with Victini, so let's just go for it. Now, I will be looking at Victini's typing first, because it is a very unusual typing, a Psychic Fire typing, but there are quite a bit of weaknesses, but you do have a really interesting amount of resistances as well. So, we are going to be weak to your standard fare. Ground, Rock, Water, Ghost, and Dark. So it's quite a lot, which means we're probably going to be running Victini as a sweeper Pokemon over being some kind of tankier kind of Pokemon. With the resistances, we do get quite a lot as well, which does keep our options pretty open. The Fairy resistance, the Steel resistance, it means we can actually cover for our team really well. Ice, Psychic, Grass, Fire, Fighting, we get a lot of resistances, so that means we can at least switch it in, at least tank up that hit pretty well, and then go for a really good sweep from there, which actually works out pretty nicely. Now, with Victini's stats, I'm going to hop into Pokemon Showdown, because it's another Pokemon that has base 100 stats across the board, and I feel like I've already kind of talked this to death by this point, that, you know, we have a really good amount of base tankiness, we can invest into tanky stats if we want to, but again, Victini isn't going to have the right kind of typing for that. But overall, it means we do have some good natural bulk, so we can switch it in, and we can endure a good amount of attacks anyways. So we also have 100 base attack and speed, which is pretty much what we're going to be working with. Now, things start getting interesting here because you are going to want a jolly nature in pretty much every scenario. That way you outspeed as much as possible, and then you just go for the sweep from there. But there are different ways of running Victini, and we will talk about those. So first off, I was just thinking max out speed, max out attack, and then we just kind of run our coverage moves. Because for a legendary Pokemon that is event exclusive as a mythical legendary, there's really only one time where it was given away outside of Japan or outside of Asia, and that was for the 14th movie Victini. So that's going to have V-Create, Fusion Flare, Fusion Bolt, and Searing Shot. And that's really going to be it. Also, it's just going to be straight from the Wonder Card in black and white version, so no 6th generation release as of the time of making this video. Sometimes you'll see different moves like Bolt Strike. Now, Victini was given away with Bolt Strike, but it was outside of America, and it's most likely going to be hacked when you see it. But it's a very, very powerful move. I'm just going to try to keep it simple. So we do have Fusion Bolt. Now, that is going to be just a standard 100 base power move with 100% accuracy that Victini does have access to. Bolt Strike is going to be slightly less accuracy, but still an overwhelming amount of power and a decent chance to paralyze. Like I said, we're just going to stick to what we have access to, unless you're playing on Simulator. If you are playing on Simulator, then Bolt Strike is the better option to go with. Also, since we are going to be running Choice Victini in pretty much every situation, having U-Turn is going to be one of your more favorable options. That way, if you're not in a good scenario when Victini comes out, just use U-Turn, you get the free damage, and you're not switching out for nothing. And with the Choice Band and a decent amount of attack, it's going to at least do something. So that is your option right there. Now here's where the fun stuff happens with Victini. We're going to look at a 100 base attack Jolly Nature. That's going to be 299 attack. Then we can take a Pokemon like Talonflame. Talonflame is known for just having a pretty strong hit because it uses stab moves with a very high amount of base power. However, people kind of don't really realize that Talonflame only has 81 base attack, yet when you're using moves like Flare Blitz, using moves like Brave Bird, it actually gains a ton of damage, and then when you're choice banding it, it starts turning into one-hit KOs even though it's only a base 81 attack Pokemon. That's why I feel that move base power is almost as important, if not more important, than the actual base attack of that Pokemon when you're augmenting it with things like Life Orb and Choice Band. So when we look at it like this, only 287 with an Adamant Nature on Talonflame. Now, Talonflame does also have the Gale Wings and more speed, but this just kind of gives you an idea of how strong Victini is going to be. Because Victini's signature move, V-Create, is absolutely absurd. 180 base power with only 95% accuracy, and the only drawback is that you lose defense and special defense. That it's not like Explosion where you blow yourself up or anything, you're just getting a huge amount of damage that's automatically getting stabbed because of Victini's fire typing. So over 270 base power. Then we're doing higher attack than Talonflame, and then we're also choice banding it, and also Victini can't get burned because of that fire typing, so it's going to just be raw, high base damage, huge physical hit, that really not a lot of things can survive, but Victini does have its ways of being played around. That Pokemon with Flash Fire, they can bait out a really easy V-Create, or if you just outspeed it. That 100 base speed isn't a lot, and there are a lot of weaknesses, so you can really check Victini pretty well, or you just kind of get those opportunities where you find out, hey, I can just kind of play around it. If you have a heavy resist on Fusion Bolt, there's a chance that you might be able to survive because of all that power, but it is going to be a significantly stronger Talonflame in that kind of regard for what to expect from the damage. And then as for the last move, you can kind of put in whatever right here. There's Zen Headbutt as an option, but stab really doesn't matter if you're using something like V-Create anyway, so sometimes you'll just see the Brick Break. Maybe you'll see a Tyranitar, and then you have to Brick Break it for damage and stuff, because it's going to be a very high amount of damage. That's kind of really where the only interesting thing is going to come in. Other than that, the moveset rounds itself out pretty nicely. Now, Victini can also run a bit of support, does get access to Taunt. If you are going to be running this, you might see a Leftovers on it just for a little bit of sustain because of those natural defenses. It's just going to be those sustain aspects, maybe Citrus Berry. That way it's getting a quarter of its health back really quick, which could make it hard to deal with, or it just might be a Life Orb. So it'd pretty much be the same idea as this moveset, except it would have Taunt, and then you wouldn't have Choice Band, maybe Life Orb. Life Orb is only going to sacrifice a small amount of damage, however 20% over 270 base power with all the stab and stuff being estimated could really cost you maybe some resisted situations or against very, very bulky Pokemon. So Life Orb is still a very strong option though. As long as you're getting the outspeeds, then you can use Taunt, so now you're going to be able to shut down Pokemon trying to set up against you, and then you go for the absurd amounts of damage from V-Create because 180 base power. It's just way too much to have to think about while still having a 100 base attack, so just a ton of damage right there. Other things Victini can do, it can run a Choice Scarf, and if you are running Choice Scarf, then it's pretty much this set, except with a couple of changes. Instead of Taunt, you can run Brick Break, you can run Zen Headbutt, or you can just go for Final Gambit. So Victini actually learns Final Gambit through leveling up, and that's kind of crazy because when you consider it 100 base hit points, you don't have to invest into it, and you're already going to be doing a lot of damage, if not outright KOing most sweeping Pokemon. But since we are going to be running a Choice Scarf in this situation, that's why we just have to change up some other things. So we don't need a Jolly Nature, that's overkill, which means we run Adamant. Having 299 speed, also quite a bit overkill, so again, we're going to be looking for any kind of really good specifics when we're trying to break down a stat, but in some cases, we are going to be going up against a Mewtwo, like Mega Mewtwo Y, since this is legendary, so we will need to outspeed base 140 Pokemon. So let's go and look up Mewtwo Y, that way we can get the numbers right here. So our target is then going to be on a Timid Nature 416. So yeah, after you do 279 with the Choice Scarf, this is going to outspeed it just fine. So that's kind of the point we're looking at, which means we get more hit points, just tankiness overall, and using it for Final Gambit to have a higher chance of knocking out pretty much anything, like an uninvested hit point Mewtwo Y. So that just kind of shows how when you look into the specifics and you look at the matchups that you want to win, you can kind of just work it out and then beat out other Pokemon by just considering the stats. So by doing this, we outspeed Mewtwo, and then we outdamage it on Final Gambit. Now, Final Gambit isn't going to be a go-to, just consider it more of an out. That V-Create, going to be high amounts of damage, but if you want to just use Final Gambit, there are some opportunities where you might find, oh, this is a better choice for me because you've already taken a little bit of damage, you know you're not going to be able to survive anyways, V-Create might not knock out, but Final Gambit will. Just those kind of situations, then you can use it there. But that's going to be Victini. So, Simulator, yeah, it gets access to different moves. As for just being an event Pokemon, it makes it pretty hard to pinpoint since its giveaways and exclusivity is pretty awkward. But at the same time, it's Victini, 100 base stat mythical Pokemon that has absurd amounts of base damage and some decent sweeping options between Choice Scarf, Life Orb, Choice Band, and maybe even running Taunt as kind of a pseudo support. So if you guys enjoyed this video, that's how you use Victini, and I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching.